Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do. Here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, I have been reviewing each story individually in the collection, These Stories of Ray Bradbury. I am up to number 47 of 100. That tale is called The Next in Line, and it was originally released in 1947. To give you a brief synopsis, husband and wife Joseph and Marie are in a small Mexican town on vacation. One morning, they get up in their motel room, they look out from the balcony, and they see a funeral procession. A man is carrying a small box on his head. Joseph explains to his wife that the box contains probably the body of a child, and that the child's probably only been dead a few hours because of the climate in the area. They would want to do a burial quickly because they did not have access to embalming. That day, they go to visit a cemetery, and they pay a groundskeeper to take them underground into the catacombs and show them the mummies that preside there. He leads them down a spiral staircase into a very sort of morbid location, and there they find 150 mummies lining either side of the hallway, standing there, looking as they last look just before their deaths. The groundskeeper explains that it costs 20 pesos a year to keep your loved one buried in the cemetery. And so when people stop being paid for, they dig them up and they put them down there in the catacombs for free until somebody pays to have them reburied. They leave the catacombs, and after that, Marie desperately wants to leave the town for some unknown reason. Although they had planned to stay longer, they'd even rented the room for an extra day. But she convinces her husband to leave today. They take back the money for their extra day's rent, and they load up the car. They hop in. They're getting ready to go. But the car won't start. So it has to be taken to the local garage, where they learn that it'll take another 2 or 3 days to get it fixed. Marie keeps getting worse and worse. This feeling of existential dread is building up in her. She's scared of everything. She tries to hide her fear by sort of burying herself into magazines and sort of distracting herself that way. They go to lunch, and she finds herself counting the enchiladas on their plate, just like she counted the rows of mummies in the catacombs. And nothing seems to work. Her feeling of dread is growing and growing, and Joseph is no help because he is very rude to her and sort of dismissive of her feelings and says, to go away, just relax, don't worry about anything. That last night, she lays in bed, and she sort of goes through this sort of thought process where she's like, I have to concentrate to keep my heart beating because any moment I could die. It could be my last breath. And the next morning, we see Joseph. He's in his car, driving away. He instinctively reaches over to the passenger seat, which he finds empty because Marie is dead and not with him, and he smiles for some reason. So, this story, I would say Bradbury very much channels Edgar Allan Poe, as well as a little bit of Hemingway. It has this sort of gothic macabre of Poe, but it's written very, very sparse and spare like Hemingway. So I think it very much channels both of those authors. It's very beautifully poetic, but yet also beautifully simple. And that's where I get that sort of feeling of Hemingway as well as Poe. But this is very much Bradbury also. So I think the first thing I was drawn to was the fact that the characters' names are Joseph and Marie. Joseph and Marie almost sounds like Mary, Joseph and Mary from the Bible. And there is a sort of sense of religion draped across the whole thing, from the beginnings in the catacombs and the mummies and the burials. And then later on her last night, there's a scene where Marie sort of wishes that she still had a religion, and that basically she'd given it up in her later life, having been married to Joseph, and she feels like the locals, so drenched in their religion and their ceremony and their funeral processions, probably don't have as much time to feel dread as she does, and if they do feel dread, they can turn to their god for relief. Joseph sort of mocks her, and what are you going to do? Pray to some saint or whatever? And she actually mentions that as a child, her favorite saint was Joseph, which is interesting because his name is Joseph. Throughout the thing, though, with this Joseph and Mary thing going on, I was expecting to hear that she'd lost a baby and that she was triggered by the burial of a small child, but that sort of never materialized. But there's also, throughout this, all these signs pointing back to her body and frequent mention of her breast and her insides. And very much, you feel a sense of motherhood being sort of hinted at throughout the whole thing. It's never materialized, but I think it's still important, especially with this Joseph and Mary metaphor that's going on. But the whole story has this growing sense of existential fear, which I really, really liked. It didn't materialize in any significant way because this is, again, understated like Hemingway. But there is this feeling almost like combination of Poe and maybe a little bit of Lovecraft as well, where something bad is going to happen. And, kudos to Bradbury for resisting the urge to have some sort of huge paranormal thing, and instead, just having the unexplained death, apparently, of Marie. And in fact, it doesn't really mention, I don't think that I remember, that she was actually died, but her absence suggests her death. Otherwise, Joseph just left her there, which I don't think happened. But this sort of vague ending seems appropriate to the tale. And then you have to wonder about Joseph himself, sort of vaguely compared to a saint, but is he in fact a malevolent force here, other than just being a pretty crummy husband who was dismissive of his wife throughout the tale? So, yeah, pretty good, pretty morbid, macabre tale here from Bradbury. He's been known to dabble in the horror realm in his own way quite a bit, and I've been noticing as we are nearing the halfway point in this collection, unlike the previous collection of Bradbury stories that I read where there was a lot of science fiction, this one is very much leaning, there's a lot of horror, sort of mild horror, and also a little bit of more just sort of literary stuff. So it's been an interesting mix, and it's been interesting to see more of that side of Bradbury in his collection. So as we get into the second half of this project, it'll be interesting to see where the stories lean. Will they be more like this, or will they be sort of more the bread and butter of Bradbury that I think of, which is science fiction? That's it, guys. Next story, I forgot to write it down, but I'll find it for you here quickly. Next story will be Jack in the Box, so be sure to tune in for that. That is story number 48 of 100. Moving right along. We'll see. Hopefully we get this project done before the end of 2022, but we'll see. No promises. Got lots of stuff here to do on Let's Talk, and Bradbury is just a small part of it. But thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, and until next time, keep it creepy.